Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, grade 8. I hope that you are following up in all the tutorials given to you by the school and precisely social studies. Of course, today we are going to take a new lesson about the industrial development in the Arab world. And precisely we're going to refer to the importance of industry and why it's important for the economy, especially for the Gulf countries. You know, Gulf countries, and after the oil rush that happened after the 1930s, their economy, precisely in Saudi Arabia and the rest of the Gulf countries, the economy was totally based on the revenues that were coming from oil industry. And all that, of course, in a way or another, affected the economy to be depending only on one source. Of course, healthy economies all over the world, they would depend on other kind of industries, and this is what precisely was done in Saudi Arabia and in the Gulf country by creating other kind of industries like industries related to dairies, industries related to production of daily materials, industry related to industry of cars, for example, industry of everyday life needed things. All of these other forms of industry, of course, can be related to the industry of tourism. Of course, it can bring other revenues to countries all over the world. So all kind of economies that have more than one kind of that have multiple sources of industrial sources that are considered as healthy economies. But now we're going to focus about the industry and development in the Arab world. Of course, the Arab Organization for Industrial Development, Summit in Kuwait 1966, the Arab League decided to establish an organization to improve and develop the industry in general. The decision was approved by the Council of Arab Economic Unity in 1968. An Arab Standardization and Metrology Organization was formed, and the headquarters were established in Cairo. This league and this kind of summit was done in order to discuss possible ways to improve the industry in the Arab countries, and started like having a vision about how Arabs can develop their industries so they can create a strong economy, and this started in 1968. Now, if you're going to look up here, all these are the flags of the important industrial countries, especially Saudi Arabia and Egypt. In Morocco, of course, we have going to refer to other kind of countries like Iraq and Syria. The Arab Organization for Industrial Development. The main objective of the organization was to improve the status of industry. The organization has worked on issuing various reports to clarify the condition of industrial Arab countries and to address the problems and in order to create a strong industry that can fulfill the needs of each country instead of depending on a lot of imports. They can start exporting all these products and be productive nations that would have multiple financial sources instead of depending on limited kind of sources in industry. Industry in Saudi Arabia, the Saudi government primary objective is to enrich the economy, of course, in fields like industry and avoid full dependency on oil. Of course, and this was done by the 5 years plan that was emanated back from like 3-4 decades by former kings like King Fahd, King Khalid, and King Abdullah alayhi rahmahum. All of these are kind of previous plans that were done, like the infrastructural plan that was done, the building industry, but of course still all the industries in the Gulf country and precisely in Saudi Arabia was depending a lot on oil revenues. However, the new vision, as we took before, the 2030 vision that was started by Prince Mohammed bin Salman, of course it's tried to create different or renewable sources, especially industrial sources, technological sources that can bring multiple financial revenues to the Saudi industry and improve the economy for the future. Now, to encourage investors, the government provided them with low-cost prices for infrastructure and relevant services. Of course, an example of industrial cities that were precisely built for that reason in Saudi Arabia was the city of Jubail. Two cities were chosen for the purpose of industrial work, Jubail and, of course, Yumbar. And, of course, the target of these industrial cities was like to create an environment that's only focusing and stay away from, of course, from overpopulated areas like Jeddah and Riyadh, and to get use of the vast areas that are found in Saudi Arabia. The foundation of such cities was so much important for development of industry, where most of the basic factories were centralized in these countries. Of course, we have the industry in Oman, the 2010 report given by the, of course, and when you talk about industries, it's a lot, everything related to dairies, production, factories, and domestic kind of products that are started for the first time. We see Saudi brands. All of this is gonna related to different sources. And the country will not be depending a lot on importing products outside, and this is going to help the economy and will strengthen the internal currency, of course. The industry in Oman 2010 report given by the organization assured that Oman is one of the countries that progressed steadily in the sixth year. Of course, and the proof about this that in the former financial crisis that happened in 2007, 2008, Oman was able to survive this kind of crash. This proved how their domestic industry was so much important. Industry in United Arab Emirates, of course, also when it comes to United Arabs, you know that the sector of tourism, focusing on other industrial sector, has been well developed. Cement, aluminium, building materials, plastic, furniture, foodstuff are some of the many sectors that have attracted investors, of course, and played a very important role. Industry in Tunisia, one of the most important industries in Tunisia is manufacturing, textile, of course. And leather manufacturing represents 45% of the total good exports. In Kuwait, one of the major industries appeared expanding after 2002. They're focusing a lot on canned food and poultry, and now it's exporting most of these products, especially to the Gulf countries and the Middle Eastern region. We have the industry in Morocco, of course. That industry is highly developed, and it amounts to 70% of the total exports, especially in industry of canned food, also in industry of textile, and played very important role in spreading all over, also North Coast, the North African coastal region, and all over the Middle East. Of course, we have in Egypt, among the best ranking industries in the country, of course, Egypt are clothing and textiles. Clothes and textiles. Other industries such as those petroleum, chemicals, of course, construction and metal, of course, of industrial and constructional, important supplementation that can happen, building, high infrastructural buildings, and other kind of infrastructure that's developing and increasingly developing, and it's promising to be also, after 10 years, as one of the pioneering industries, not only in the Middle East but in the world. This is in short when we talk about the Arabs industries. Of course, we can't deny former industries, of course, unfortunately, because of wars that happened, especially in Iraqi industry in the past. It was very strong in the Syrian industry, but after civil war, of course, most of these powers were depleted. Now that's how we're referring to countries, present countries that have strong industry, especially in the Gulf area. Now let's go back, let's revert to the lesson a little bit. Fine. Talking about the industrial development in the Arab world, the main objective of the organization was to improve the status of the industry. Within a few years, the Arab League freed the organization from the influence of its member countries, and thus became independent. Of course, the organization has worked on issuing various to clarify the condition in industry. We have the industries. And of course, industry is one of the fields that have been progressing steadily worldwide. The Arab world also aims to such development, seeks possible ways. So instead of being a lot of consumers, we can start being producers. And this is so much important for the Arabian stability, economic stability. With the country with a strong industry is a country with a strong economy and stabilized currency, of course. One of the organizations responsible for monitoring such progress of the Arab Organization Industrial Development, the Arab Organization Industrial Development. Of course, we talked in 1966, Arab League Council. Indeed, in Kuwait, they met and they made this organization to go over to address the problems and try to find possible ways to improve the industrial Arabian areas. In 1968, the organization was approved and Cairo became headquarters. The main objective of course, now the industry in Oman in 2010, reports given by the organization assured that Oman is one of the countries that has progressed steadily in the 6 centuries. The report clarified that Omani Sultanate has been able to maintain such a stability for various reasons. First, government worked on diversity in economy of the countries, given priority to projects which increase investment in infrastructure, services, oil, and manufacturing industry. Selling oil to other countries for high prices was another reason for stability. Of course, in our industry in Saudi Arabia is another country. The full approach used by the Saudi government, primarily objectives to enrich the economy in the field of industry, avoid full dependency on oil, as I said before, to encourage investors in government, provide them with low-cost prices for infrastructure. It's kind of like motivation for those investors who are going to start with their own budget to create an industry, and are going to be supported and pushed forward by the government. Keeping development and targeted, the government established the Saudi Arabian Basic Industries Corporation to operate hydrocarbon mineral-based industries in the kingdom. Two cities were chosen, as we said, Jubail and Yumbar. In addition, oil reserves in the kingdom studies. Now, the funds and the money that was coming from oil reserves helped the Gulf countries in using the financial necessary aid in order to build their other form of industries, so they can depend on other kind of industrial sources instead of being solely depending on oil revenues. The country is rich in many different resource minerals: gold, copper, iron, silver. Of course, the Saudi Arabian and United Arab Emirates. When it comes to United Arab Emirates, the industrial sector has been well developed: cement, aluminium, building materials, plastic, furniture, food industry, of course, and are some of the many sectors have attracted investors in the field of industry throughout the country. Of course, now also building of many hotels, and this is also going to improve the economic industry, especially in Saudi Arabia, when we have a lot of hotels that were in the last 20 decades were built close to the religious holy sites like Medina and Mecca. And also this sector is important. The accommodation is going to improve the economy, which is considered another important form of industry, of course. When you build such kind of buildings, you're going to improve the economy. So this is how industry is so much important to such countries. Now, the government revenues, though, depend on the oil and gas industry. The reasons for such development, again, get back in concept of easygoing tax laws, low labor costs, political stability, and excellent facilities. One of the industries that started flourishing in the previous years is that the chemical fertilizers, of course, and building all that stuff. Now, industry in Tunisia, one of the most important industries in Tunisia is manufacturing, of course, textile and leather, as we said before. It represents 45% of the total good exports. Agribusiness, which is agricultural businesses, which is in agri form. The second most important industry includes, because it's an agricultural country, we don't have to forget about that, includes for milling, fish, fruits, and vegetables, depending on their resources in order to create strong industry. Olive oil, processing of oil or canned oil and bottled oil, and spreading it and selling and exporting it to other countries. Processing sugar, refining of sugar. Mining and production of mechanical and electrical equipment considered very important as well. Industry in Kuwait, although Kuwait still depends, it's all exporting, but they started creating other kind of industries, as we said before, manufacturing ammonia, paper products, fertilizer, processed food, as we said before, and some other goods. One of the major industries which appeared and expanding since 2002 has been food processing, of course, and it's becoming one of the most important exports in Kuwait in the previous 15 years. And poultry, of course. Kuwait's industry accounted for 60% of GDP in the year 2000. Industry in Morocco, of course, as we said, 70% total exports. They developed a lot. Morocco has it's one of the rising economies in the industries, and considering the Arabian countries. Among the Arabian countries, Morocco has an active chemical industry in addition to its oil refineries. Textile, milk, leather, sugar, and flour are amongst the most important industries in the country. Of course, we have, last but not least, we have Egypt. amongst the best ranking industries in the country. Of course, the size and strong power was relied a lot on the population and the workers that can that have big experience in such kind of industries to make clothes and textiles. Other industries such as those of petroleum, chemicals, construction, metal started improving the country after the year 1990. In the year 2001, industry accounted for 30 of the country's GDP, and especially precisely nowadays, the country is making a lot of industrial plans and projects to improve and create and make Egypt one of the strongest industries in the coming 2 decades, inshallah. This is in short is going to be the introduction of our lesson about industrial development in Arab countries. Thank you very much.